Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. About to delve into part 2 of what Guy did a solo round of the Have It All webinar experience that we've been doing. This one specifically was about the inquiry of thinking, communication, and then towards the end of part 1, Guy shared an incredible tool that we've used for a decade and a half now, all around how to release trauma. And I'm talking like programmed trauma in your life from the time you were a kid that's just been affecting you unconsciously for years. How do you handle that? So we kicked this part off. He kind of ended part 1 showing you the tool. And then he's going to start in part 2 by sharing with you his personal story of how he actually used this tool for the first time in his life and the result that had on his life. Also looking at how you can start using this tool to release decades of programmed trauma from yourself. Then once you use this tool, there's an ability to create a whole new future, one that today is impossible for you to create. It's one that you've maybe thought of, but every time you try to create it, just life seems to fight back. So that's because, you know, as you'll hear a guy say, that's like trying to put whipped cream on a mud pie or a shit pie, whatever you want to call it. It just doesn't work. You have to deal with the foundational stuff, and that's what this tool will allow. And then at the end of this session, he's going to share with you another powerful exercise that allows you to, in any area that you're stuck, whether it's a circumstance or with a person or whatever, how to get past that, how to give yourself a new perspective, and by the new perspective, give yourself new forms of thought and action that you can take moving forward. So I hope you guys listen intently. If you're driving, you know, maybe use a voice app to take down some notes so you can do the work after. It's something I've been doing recently a lot. And I hope you enjoy it. Would love to hear back from you guys about comments and how this landed for you. As always, you can reach me at elon@SatoriPrime.com. Have an amazing day, my friends.
So I'm going to tell you guys a story, and this is a super personal story for me. I want you to get the power of this, because for a lot of you guys, you know who I am right now, you know what I've become or who I am, blah, blah, blah. You see the things that my brother and I achieve, and you know, maybe you look up to us, whatever. And I remember doing stuff like that too. I think it's actually really important to take people off pedestals and just see the humanity that we all are. We're all literally, all of us are literally dealing with being human. And there's, again, a design to being human and things that we all are innately dealing with. So it doesn't matter what you see that we've created, we've invented, what we're doing, what we can create results, or anybody else for that matter. Know that no matter how quote unquote successful somebody is, they're still dealing with the same shit as you. Doesn't matter if they have $1 billion in the bank, maybe their problems are different, but they're still focusing on something that's creating some kind of issue in their life, and you could relate to that problem, I promise you. So here's my story. When I was younger, like for me too, I don't actually remember the exact trauma event that set this off, but I do remember what catalyzed it. From about the age of 12 to about the age of 19, I dealt with some pretty heavy depression, okay? And not like light depression, like heavy depression. So I was really depressed. It showed up like anger all the time. And I eventually led me to suicide, or like extremely suicidal thoughts, and like actually like attempting to end my life a few times. The reason I didn't actually ever go through with suicide attempts is I was actually raised in a super loving family. Never felt like, you know, I wasn't wanted or anything like that. However, something along the way had happened to me. I created some interpretation of life, and I consistently thought about ending my life. Now, I didn't go through with it because I really did love my family and I really knew that they loved me. And I was very much aware of the selfish act it would be to end my life, even though that was like a top priority for me. So my life was based around thinking about ways that my life could end, that I wouldn't be the one responsible for ending it, because that's really what I wanted. So I would have awful thoughts in the morning about like getting hit by a bus, or like falling off of something, whatever. And I had hoped that some incident would happen that would end my life, so that it would just be like, oh, this tragic event happened and I could leave this plane of reality. And that's the world that I lived in for a long period of time. So I'm not saying this to depress you, but I just want you to understand the gravity of what I was living with, right? And again, I don't remember the exact moment where these kind of things started, but I do remember where it like exploded into being something. So I'm approximately 13 years old. At the time, I was living in northern New Jersey in a town called Fairlawn. It's about 15 minutes outside New York City, so just south of Manhattan. And we lived in this house, and I actually shared a backyard with my best friend. His name is Jake. And Jake's father's name is Kenny. And outside of my own father, Kenny was probably the most influential adult figure in my life. Kenny was my soccer coach. He drove us to school every day. Obviously, I would spend a lot of time at my best friend's house, stuff like that. And Kenny was this prominent adult figure in my life, someone I really looked up to. When Kenny turned 40, Kenny started battling with cancer. I don't remember exactly what kind of cancer, but I remember it was fairly aggressive. And I don't really think I understood the concept of cancer at the time, or really anything about life and death, like in a true, meaningful way at that time. And what I remember is that there was a party for him, and the party must have been because he had beaten the cancer. And what I specifically remember is the band in the backyard, and then playing like, rock music, because Kenny was this amazing person who knew everything about rock music. There was a radio show, I remember, where they used to say like, name that tune, and they would play like 1 to 4 notes. And for like the first note, he would always know exactly what song it was, which always was amazing to hear. Anyway, so Kenny's this incredible guy, and he ends up beating cancer. A few months later, out of all places, this might make you laugh, in AOL, America Online chat room, if you guys are not from the States, maybe you don't know what AOL is, but AOL was like what started the internet in America. And there used to be these chat rooms. And me and a bunch of my friends went into a chat room, and somehow this conversation got out of control. And I said something about my friend Jake that wasn't nice in his interpretation, and he stopped talking to me. And my best friend just like fell off the map, and we just didn't communicate anymore for like months. Now in my family, we would do a lot of physical labor. So I grew up in kind of like an immigrant, poorish type family. And that meant we just did a lot of stuff around the house. Like we would clean up the yard, stuff like that. So that was pretty regular for my weekends, was to do a lot of physical labor. And I remember I was in the front yard, like watering bushes or the grass or something. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Jake walking down my street. And with him is this old man, this like old hunched over man. And I remember like double taking like this, because I suddenly had recognized that the old man that he's walking with was his father. And looking back at it now, what must have happened is his father relapsed, the cancer relapsed, and it must have been extremely aggressive. And instead of looking like a very healthy 40-year-old man, Kenny looked like he was in his late 60s, 70s. He was like hunched over, and how with the hair, how it looks, and his skin was yellow. I've been told that's from liver failure and stuff like that. And he just didn't look good. And they walked by, and I remember kind of like awkwardly saying hello to them and just feeling a lot of shame about the whole situation. And we still don't talk, right, during this whole situation. So shortly thereafter, Kenny dies, passes away. I end up finding out from my brother the day after the funeral. Well, I missed the funeral, and I found out basically after the funeral had happened that this happened. And at his house, there was everyone coming over to give him, console him and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure he was in shambles. And my parents told me to go over there and say something. And like all the embarrassment of it comes up. And of course I go over there. We kind of had this moment of embrace. And I just remember feeling like shit about the whole situation. Now, what I remember specifically about that moment is whatever relationship I had with God at that point in time, that's gone. Because what I remember clearly thinking and saying over and over to myself at that time is that bad things happen to good people. I like legitimately, clearly, very clearly remember starting to think that is the way that the world is. And if your interpretation of the world, right, the Paris sunglasses that you put on is bad things happen to good people, and you think you're a good person, what starts happening to you? Right? Bad things. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, everything that happened in my life thereafter that didn't go the way that I thought that it should was now evidence for that I'm a bad person, I don't belong here, and that like I could tell you like a few years down the road, I would literally have thoughts like I'm God's unwanted child, I'm the black sheep of the earth, I'm here as like this plaything, and if that's what my job is on this planet, I am not interested in being here at all. And that's what led me down this path. I remember blaming things on my depression and then not wanting to be caught in the lie. And then it didn't occur to me like a lie, but it's like I didn't want to be caught in that my story, like the stories that I was making up, stuff like something bad happened at school or I didn't get a grade and my parents were yelling at me. I'd say things like, I'm already depressed, like you're making it worse. And then of course, like to not be found out, I would have to just act more depressed. And it's like, you just keep getting into that habit. It just creates the whole world of this thing. And this is what we all do, right? And none of us want to get found out. So like when a lot of people, right, use extravagant language and they lie a lot and they try to bolster their ego and stuff like that and all these different things. And now something you should know about humans is it's really important for us to look good. So if we get caught in a lie, that doesn't look very good. So in order to not get caught, we start living the lie as if it's the truth, because heaven forbid we get caught and that looks bad. And that was kind of my world. So if you fast forward, 6-7 years, it's just becoming very clear, like how this whole world gets formed. And this happens to a lot of people. And I've worked with a lot of people who are depressed, and it's kind of the same thing for everybody. It's like the ultimate victim mentality, right? And you use it to blame everything and everyone in every situation for what you're going through. And it's really nasty to be inside of, and it's very difficult to get out of. So fast forward a few years, I go to college and I'm a sophomore at school, and I'll make the story a little bit shorter for the essence of time. But an event happens and my symptoms start becoming physical in such a way that it scares me. And up until that point, my parents probably became aware of the problem around 16 or 17, and they started offering me to go to psychologists. But in my worldview, everybody else looked happy. I was the miserable one. Like everybody else had figured something out that I didn't understand. And I felt dumb because of it. So I was like, wait, I don't want somebody's help to tell me what it is. I'm like, am I really that stupid that I can't figure this out on my own? So I would always evade and like not want to get any kind of help from anybody. But when these physical ailments start happening, I could clearly attribute what was happening in my body to the way that I was feeling. And that scared me for the first time. So I had found out about this class from my mom about a year before from one of her friends. And I decided that I was going to go and take this class. And they did a similar exercise with me that I'm doing with you guys here. And they kind of started telling me about this, like this, what happened and the story. And for me, there wasn't like another reality. Like in my reality, everything was shit, right? So they start telling the story, and it was about the second day of the course. And I had this 15-minute walk back to the subway. I was living in Boston at the time. So I had this like 15-minute walk back to the subway or underground, whatever you call it. And on that walk back, like I remember the whole day, this story about Kenny was just right there for me. Like it was so clear for me. And I started thinking to myself, could it be that I made this whole thing up? Because in reality, this is what I realized during this walk. In reality, here's what happened. Kenny died, right? My interpretation, bad things happen to good people, right? And all the laundry list of things that came after that. So before this work, if you would have come up to me and told me that things in this reality were not this way, I would have laughed. I'd probably told you to go fuck yourself. And I would have said, hey, I got like a volume of evidence on this. Don't tell me it's not the way things are. And this is what I see everybody doing. We've collected evidence to make our story true. That doesn't make your story true, though. It's still a story. So the truth is that Kenny died, and I was walking down the stairs of the subway, and this became so clear to me that it created instant transformation. I literally felt like a bolt of lightning hit me. Like I can tell you what it looked like, what it smelled in that moment, everything. It was like this very clear, distinct moment. And I remember my right foot coming off the second stair from the top. And by the time my right foot hit the third step, I was a completely different human being. Like, I don't remember smiling during those years. I really don't actually remember seeing blue sky or sun during those years. I don't remember seeing trees very much. And I got on that subway and I was literally like this. I was just shaking because it had become so clear to me that I made this whole thing up and that I had a choice to let the story go. And I did in that exact moment. That's exactly what happened to me. And I was just vibrating. And it felt like 50 pounds fell off me, not even off me. I felt like I had a noose around my neck with a chain, and there was a boulder, and I was carrying around this boulder about this interpretation that I had. And in that moment, I was just like, I'm going to give that up. And it all just fell behind me. Now, when that fell away, that created space for something, because inside that story, something is not possible about who I am, who people are, who I am in this world, or anything else like that. But the moment that interpretation is gone, it's like there is just space, right? So if you're trying to create right now something in your life and there's an issue, there's this interpretation, there's this problem, trying to put something else in there is like trying to put two things in the same space. Two things can't occupy the same space at the same time. When you do exercises like this, what it does is it disappears that interpretation, and then you have room to create a new story of your choosing now that goes in that place that can empower you. This story, right, the one that's on the screen, not very empowering. You guys get that? That's a shitty story. And there's a whole world, a whole paradigm that's created because of interpretations like these. And this is what the human race is doing right now unconsciously for the most part. For people who have not done work like this, is you just are littered with stories that happened to you, not because you chose them, because circumstances happened and a traumatized kid made decisions about the way things are. And for the last who knows how many decades, you've been looking for evidence to make those stories true, and you live them as if they are, and they run the show. And then you wonder why you can't get your finances handled, or why you can't get the relationship of your dreams, or why your business is not taking off, or why. And then you keep dealing with the non-reality, which gives you no power, and you keep trying to invent on top of it. So trying to invent on top of this stuff, like I want you to imagine like if I had a tinfoil that holds pies in it, or like a pie, like I was going to bake a pie, and inside the tinfoil there's just shit. And this is the shit right here. And then I try to like come around and start doing all this positive thinking stuff and chanting and all this kind of stuff. And by the way, there's reasons that that stuff does work. But what gets in the way of it really working for you is that like that's like whipped cream, right? All that stuff is whipped cream, and it's really effective when you know how to use it. But positive thinking is like putting whipped cream on a shit pie. If the shit is still there, I don't care how much whipped cream you put on top of shit. It still tastes like shit. So the work that we're looking at here is about how to release and choose to get rid of that stuff, so that when you do the other work, you know, like all the meditation, the chanting and stuff like that, it starts becoming effective, and you start realizing how much power you really have to co-create this reality for yourself. And I say co-create because, you know, whatever eternal source you believe in, whether it's energy, God, Krishna, Jesus, I don't care what your belief system is. I believe you're in partnership with that energy. So you're like, you do have this ability, and I have seen this at work in my life for 14 straight years. But it takes and requires doing a process like this so that you actually get that space back, and then you can use communication, like we said, to both disappear and create. So in that moment, I chose something that had this disappear, and then I chose a new future for myself that I started auto-generating. So up until then, it was like I had this book, right, with all this kind of stuff written in it. And basically what it gave me was, this is what I saw afterwards, just a blank empty space, and I just started being able to write. And most people believe that who we are in the present moment is a function of our past, right? You'll tell me things like the books I read, the religion I was part of or raised in, what my parents told me, what my friends were, the books I read, the TV shows I watched, like all that stuff from the past has given me who I am in the present moment, when the actual truth is who we are, or a way of looking at it, not the truth. The way of looking at it is who we are in the present moment is a function of our future. And that really is what's at play in my assertion, because if you look at when you go on vacation, for instance, right? You buy a ticket to go on vacation, or you buy a ticket to come to our event, or you buy a ticket for anything. You just say yes to something. You're immediately called to action by that yes. So for instance, like if I'm going to go on vacation to Hawaii or something like that, right? Let's say that vacation is 3 months from now. The moment I say yes to that vacation, I'm called into that future. I'm going to start doing things like eating healthy, probably start losing some weight, maybe go clothes shopping. Like there's all these actions I'm going to take consistent with the future that's coming, okay? And that's really what's at play. We're actually constantly interacting with the future that we're expecting, not so much with our past. But the reason it looks like our past is constantly in the way because things like this happen, like what I'm talking to you about here, and this interpretation that actually happened decades ago, right? What you do is you misfile it and you put it into your future. And then from your present moment, you start living into it over and over again. The hamster wheel effect that so many people deal with, like still have that same issue over and over again, it's the mind puts it there. And then you start living into that future over and over again, and you're constantly taking actions consistent with that expectation. The moment you choose and let that disappear, or get in communication with that person and let that disappear, whatever it is, now there's nothing sitting out there in your future anymore. That interpretation is gone, and now you get to use communication to auto-generate what goes into the future. And you actually choose and say, yep, that's who I want to be. Yep, that's what I'm creating myself to be. And you'll find that the same thing happens, that who you are in the present moment is immediately impacted by that future that you're creating. And that phenomenon can work over and over again. And the more areas of life that you're willing to do this on, the more power you'll start having in terms of your belief in creation, right? And what ends up happening is that action always moves things. Action creates reaction, right? So the more you take actions consistent with the new future, you'll find, whoa, I took that action. Whoa, I got a completely different result than I'm used to. The more you get that kind of result, the more you believe in this process. The more you believe in this process, the more actions you take. The more actions you take, the more results you get. The more results you get, the more belief you have. And it becomes this cyclical thing where you start finding out how powerful you actually are, right? And this is the kind of work that we do with people when we coach them. This is the kind of work we're going to do at our live event. This is the kind of work that literally pulled my ass out of depression, took me out of a fixed mindset, made me a person who can lead people, who can articulate and communicate well, who people follow, right? Like all these different things that you guys see today is a function literally of this story disappearing and me speaking into a future who I was going to become. And who I am today is the person that keeps speaking that future into existence. And that's why, like, sometimes you'll watch Elon and I do things and you're like, how the hell did they do that now? It's just this process over and over again. That's all we do. Consistently looking at what are we making wrong? How do we get in communication about that? How do we disappear it? And now what do we say to create a new future for ourselves? Okay? So tonight, I would take 5 to 10 minutes for those of you guys who aren't clear about it yet, and look for this area of life and start distinguishing as much as you can about this stuff for yourself. And you will find by creating these distinctions, your mind is going to go to work on this stuff for you. You might not get the answer tonight, but even tomorrow you might wake up and be like, whoa, holy crap, I could see it. I could see it at work. I could see it with my relationships. I could see it in my health. I could see it in my finances. And notice, that's the most important part, notice that your interpretation, it really is just a story, okay? All right, so let me see, just see what you guys are talking about here real quick. Awesome. All right, so Matthew says he had a girlfriend, she had heavy depression, and she wants to jump from the 12th floor, but I saved her and helped her to go find help. But after her health was better, we went different paths of life, but it was a big impact on my life. But then David helped me change the glasses, and then we started our adventure. Awesome, cool. There's Anonymous here, so I'll read that, but I'm not sure who Anonymous is. It says, what if you feel like you've been in communication and your partner continues to do what upsets and even hurts you? My husband berates and annoys me, tickles and touches me inappropriately, and yes, I do think about it all the time and hate him for it. He said it because he loves me. He says it because he loves me. I'm trying to own it and openly communicate to him. I need him to stop this as I feel violated and doesn't show me love for me. He continues to do it. I want to stop thinking about it and tell myself how much I love him. My question is, what do I do the next time he does this? Do I just succumb and giggle and let him do it? It's a really big problem for me. I honestly do not like it. And yes, it does take me back to something that happened to me years ago by a boy in grade 6 who forced a kiss on me playing spin the bottle. It's a vicious cycle. I totally get it. I would actually, look, that's a conversation I'd like to have with you, not in a webinar setting, Again, I don't know who it is, so I'll do my best. I imagine, right, like in these type of scenarios, I know it seems like we're communicating to the person. I want you to look for yourself whether, and I'm just looking for you because you can't change people. Do you guys get that? Let me just close this real quick. I know people attempt it all the time, like changing people and the way that they are. People are the way that they are unless they really want to transform themselves, right? And for those of you guys who are playing the transformation game and that your partner or spouse isn't playing it with you, guess what? You can't make them wrong for that. They're not choosing that path, you are. So the transformation game has a lot to do with taking responsibility for everything. And a lot of people don't know how to forgive things. And that's not what I'm offering, by the way. So I want you to just stay with me here. When people do inappropriate things like sexual abuse and stuff like that, I don't condone those actions, right? Like, not cool with me. However, for people that I've known that have been in those situations, I've never seen anybody work through it without the ability to forgive, usually themselves first. Usually they haven't forgiven themselves because young kids, when stuff like that happens to them, they don't blame the adult, they blame themselves. Secondly, to forgive the other person. Now, a lot of people collapse, again, collapse distinctions, they collapse forgiving with condoning. And those are not the same things. You can be completely against an action and still forgive the action. That's called compassion, right? So I would offer at least for you to look, and I'm not saying it's the truth, it's just places to look. Are you trying to communicate to your husband, or are you complaining about what he's doing? If you're complaining to him about what he's doing, then that's all he hears is the complaint. There's no communication there at all. And it's really important to distinguish between sharing and complaining. Complaining keeps things in place. Guaranteed. And it's a really subtle shift. But if you were like sharing with me, I would listen for, are you sharing about your husband right now? Or are you complaining about your husband? And if you're complaining about him, I would have you keep speaking it to me until you're sharing it. Sharing is with the intent of letting go this belief system, right? So there's some way that he is that you're making wrong, and there's some communication that's not getting through, that's not altering the occurring in the relationship. And that's why I know that like there hasn't been real communication here, guaranteed. Okay, it might be interesting for you. And by the way, you can email me about this if you want to have a conversation about it. It might be interesting for you to go back, because if that brings up that event every single time, I totally get that. By the way, I think everybody gets that. I get a ringing in my right ear once every so often out of the blue. And every single time my ear rings, I remember my mom slapping me in the face when I was 4 years old. Every single time. And my ear starting to ring after that slap. So I can't hear that ring without seeing my mom slapping me. It's just like Pavlov's dog, right? So if every time he touches you, you remember this event from 6th grade, I would do this work on it. What actually happened in reality, and what did you make that mean about him? So, and I'm going to give you the whole thing right now. Here's what you can do to distinguish this, and you guys can all write this down. So here are the few questions you want to ask yourself. The first question is, it's like, what am I pretending? And what that's really answering is, what's my story? So your story is always like, you made that up, right? So it's what you're pretending. So what am I pretending is question number one. Is the first thing you want to write. The second thing you want to write is, what is the truth? So that's like the in reality what happened. Third thing is what's the impact on me? So like living into that story, what's the impact on me? And then on opposite that is living into that story, what's the impact on them? Okay. Now, usually I would take you through an exercise here to look at what was missing. What's missing that would make a difference for you? So like in this relationship with your husband, you might want to inquire into, so what is missing for you that if it was present, it would make a difference in your relationship with your husband? And generally speaking, when I talk about what's missing, I'm not talking about like a fix. It's not how do we fix this? Because in the world of fix, that means you're going to do more, better, or different of something. And what that's going to give you is more, better, different of the same results you already have. So when I'm talking about what's missing, it's always stated not as something to do, but as a way of being. Okay? So it's like if you were being compassionate, if you were being peaceful, if you were being powerful, like whatever that is, like that's what would be missing. That would make a difference for you being that way. Okay. Then you want to inquire, if you were being that way, then what would be the impact on you and what would be the impact on them? Let me know if you want me to repeat any of that. So it's, what am I pretending? What's the truth? What's the impact on them? What's the impact on me? Looking at what's missing that would make a difference. You state that as a way of being. Again, if I was being powerful, if I was being peaceful, if I was being whatever you see for yourself. And then what's the impact on them? What's the impact on you? Okay. So if we were in a coaching session, I would help you to powerfully communicate what you need to communicate to your husband. And we would go through that exercise, and that's what you would communicate. And you guys would together create a new reality for the relationship based on what was missing. And again, it's not a fix. Really, really different thing. A really, really different thing. Again, fixing is all in the world of more, better, different, and then all you get is more, better, different, of the same results. Again, that's why you get that hamster wheel effect. People look for results in the world of doing, and there are no results in the world of doing. All the results you want are in the world of being. And there's some way that you're being about the way that your husband is that makes this keep going the way that it is over and over again. And this exercise over here is to have you look at how to take responsibility for your story. When you take responsibility for your story, something becomes available that wasn't available before, and that what was missing becomes the new reality that you can live into, and there's a completely different impact on people when you start living into a new story. And then really when you change, like when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, that's exactly what would happen here. The interaction would change, or some communication would get in. It would just alter the space. Otherwise, it's just like, from what you share, at least, this thing is stuck in a constant state of make wrong. And I promise you again, I don't know who wrote that. I promise you, if you were to come to spend time with us, we would get that handled. Like, promise you, handled. Okay, so my agreement was to have you guys here for about an hour. So I've been doing training for about an hour and change right now. So I want to wrap this up. And this is, again, this was not to find the answer, right? It's so you guys can start inquiring into the areas of life that are not working for you and start looking for alternate paradigms through which you can operate from. And I'm telling you, I've transformed my entire life doing the simple exercise that I just showed you over and over again. The only part we haven't gotten into is how to actually do the exercise with them. But at first, all you guys who've been in sessions with us, you know that you got to start looking at what you can take responsibility for. I've been saying this for well over a decade. If you ask me what is the capacity of the work that I do, I say it's the expanded ability to be responsible for more and more. When you look at great men and women in our history, and we inquire as to how they did what they did, people like Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, all those people, I'm sure people in your history, whatever country you're from, people that we adhere and look up to, if you really look at what they did, you will find most likely that what they did is they said that they will become responsible for something that other people weren't willing to be responsible for. Gandhi, I'll be responsible for my country. Martin Luther King, I'll be responsible for my people. Mother Teresa, I was going to say Martha Stewart. Wow, who cares? Mother Teresa, I'll be responsible for the poor and the meek. That was it. And then they had conversations about that with people, and people got enrolled, and that changes the world. So if those people can take responsibility for big things, you in your life taking responsibility has the same result also. But most people are so devoid of taking responsibility because they live in a world of, if I'm responsible, I'm to blame. And if you guys have been in our previous sessions, we did a whole session of our responsibility and blame are two completely different things. So I'll reiterate it. Blame is all about guilt and sorrow and shame. And if you look at yourself every time you feel guilty or you give yourself a little pity party, I promise looking at your own life, if you were to validate, you would find that when that's happened, it's created no results in your life at all. It's never moved the needle forward. And you can check that out for yourself. Where you take responsibility is your willingness and ability to say, I'm at the source of what's happening. And the moment you do that, it's like, instead of just driving the car with your gas pedal and the brake, and then not touching the steering wheel, wondering why the car's crashing all the time, it's like taking full responsibility over the vehicle, putting your hands firmly on the car, and then the car, you're like, oh wow, I can actually steer this thing where I want it to go. You can do that in your life also. It just requires taking responsibility for things. But when you have it that it's all about blame, everyone's like, whoa, 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 well, I don't want to do that. And everywhere you look in the world, that's what you see. It's just a blame model. That's how politics works. That's how families work. That's how organizations work. They're always looking for who to blame. But again, validate your own experiences. When we find the politician who did whatever he did, or this guy did that, or this guy did that, and we find who to blame, how does that change anything? Doesn't change a thing. All right, so they put him in jail. Whether they did it or not doesn't matter. Society doesn't change. Nothing changes. Right? So that's just a really ineffective way of operating. So I'm going to wrap it up with that, but here's what I want to leave you guys with, because this is important to me. Right? It's important to us. Like, just so you guys understand, we've changed the whole direction of our company. You know, we've been an online marketing company, affiliate sales, XYZ, and that's still stuff we're doing in the background. But our whole company right now is in the process of rebranding. This is all SatoriPrime is doing going forward. We're a human development and empowerment company. That's it. That means live events, coaching, executive coaching, like this whole thing. So we have an event coming up in San Diego here in November. If you want this type of training, this type of coaching, and way more, right? Because we're going to get nitty gritty and personal at this training. It's going to be an intimate setting. It's in a beautiful location in San Diego on Mission Bay. It's waterfront. It's freaking gorgeous. November 3rd, 4th, and 5th is when the event's happening. You can come to this event for free. No joke, right? Like, the tickets are free for you. So the way that we're doing tickets, at least until September 15th, as of right now, if you buy and reserve your seat, you can reserve one seat for $297, or you can reserve two seats for $500, even cheaper. So again, if you want to like bring your spouse, this would be a great conversation to have you guys be a part of, so you guys can both do this work individually on yourself and on the relationship. It will alter the landscape of your life. I guarantee it. Okay. So if you reserve your seat, here's the deal. If you buy the ticket before September 15th and you have to attend the event, we will refund the full cost of your ticket within 7 days of the closure of the event. So I think the event will end on the 6th. So that means by November 13th, we will send everyone their money back for the full ticket price. All you have to do is make sure you attend. As soon as you buy your ticket, you also get our Mindfluence course, which is a home course, has all these incredible distinctions that will literally radically change the way that you operate day to day, I promise you. And we have 2 seats available right now for a 4-hour private training session that's going to happen on the first day before everybody else starts their program. So our program starts on November 3rd at 6 p.m. For at least the 2 more people that buy seats right now. It's going to be about a group of 20 to 25 of us in there, I believe. And we're going to do a 4-hour training session just for that group. That's it. Nobody else gets access to that training. And we're going to do something really special during that 4-hour period, okay? So that's the event. A lot of you guys may want to come there, and you know that you want to be there, and you have some conversation like, yep, I want to be there. For those of you guys that want to be there, awesome. I can't wait to welcome you. Can't wait to see you at the event. Some of you guys are, no, I don't want to do this. Great. If that's you, then I appreciate you guys coming to spend time with us. I hope you got value today, and keep coming back. Like, come back to these. These are all free trainings. We're going to keep doing them. I love doing this stuff. And then there's like a third group of you guys who are like, yeah, I want to be there, but. And then there's this whole stuff that comes after the but. Usually what comes after the but is like, I don't have time, I don't have money, and like whatever reasons you've invented. Now I want you to look at your life, and I want you to consider that whatever is coming after that but is not new, and has probably run the show for a really, really, really long period of time. Okay? I know money and time ran the show for me for a long time. It's like, but I'm scared, but I'm this, but I'm that, but it's whatever those buts are. You know the genealogy of that but, just like you know the genealogy of the story that we talked about today. And there's an impact on your life, working your life, having that but make all the choices for you. It is a breakthrough to figure out and deal with how to choose coming to something, saying yes to it, and then figuring out how to get there. Right? So most people live their life in a way that they want to know how to do everything before they take any action. Again, they spend time thinking about it endlessly. So they'll be by a wall, they have this hat on their head, they want to throw the hat over the fence. That's the yes but people, right? But they won't throw the hat over the fence because they don't know how to get the hat back. Where the person who's successful throws the hat over the wall and then creates a circumstance where they're forced to figure out how to get the hat. So just by you saying yes to buying an event ticket, you are immediately putting that into your future. We talked about that too. And that's going to have impact on you right now in the present so that you can become the kind of person that makes that happen. we have an amazing woman who's in our coaching community still, one of our favorite people, Emily, who did this, by the way, and took her family from Australia, her husband and 2 kids, bought a ticket and figured out the whole thing with all the challenges that came up, figured out the whole thing, and had the most transformative 2 days of her life during our event. And this event is a whole day and a half longer than that one. And by the way, if you actually want to see, I saw we posted a video on our Facebook wall, .com/SatoriPrime, where I put up the video for that event. And she was the first person that commented on it and said how transformative that weekend was for her. But she had transformed before she even got there because she dealt with a butt that had run her life the entire time. And by the time she showed up, she was ready to do some completely different work than she thought she was going to do. It completely transformed her life. It was incredible. So all you guys have an opportunity to do this. And if you are a yes but and you want to talk to us about how to make that happen, talk to us, but show us that you're committed to coming, right? And again, you will get that ticket price back. So come and get a breakthrough in the areas of life that matter to you. It's going to impact your entire life, just like it did for me when I was 19 years old. That was a completely different future that kid was going to have. One where he was probably not going to be around. I did not think past the age of 21 at all. There was no future out there for me. I lived my life like it was all coming to an end. And when that happened, I was like, holy shit, I actually have to think about what's coming next. It like blew my mind because I just didn't do that. Also, if you have any questions, Jordan is our operations manager and so much more. She's an amazing woman and my ex-girlfriend on top of all that. And if you have any questions about the event, about anything, please email her. If it's appropriate, she'll send it up to us and we'll deal with it directly, personally, no issue. But she's definitely the person to talk to. If you do need to email her, I recommend writing her name down because everyone gets it wrong. Everyone thinks it's Jordan. It's Jordan, Jordanne at SatoriPrime.com, okay? If you know for a fact that you cannot come to our live event, like you're like, guys, I'd love to be there and XYZ is happening in my life, I can't be there, like look at the conversation I just had with you and see if you can make it work. If not, we have other options that you can continue to work with us. I personally think this is a no-brainer. If you want a year's worth of coaching with us and like to do a really intensive program, that's a totally different thing, and I'll talk about that in a second. But your other option is, this should be bi-weekly. I don't know, I never change this. Right? Bi-weekly means every other week. I always forget if it's bi-weekly or bi-monthly. Bi-weekly, right? So if you know you can't make it to the event, you can start getting coaching from us right now. We have a session coming up here in 5 days. Our next meeting is August 30th, excuse me. You can go to youwillhaveitall.com to learn about the coaching here. By the way, for the live event, it's youwillhaveitall.com /live. Should probably tell you where to go, right over here, right? For the group coaching, just go to the homepage itself. There's additional training there on doing a fear exercise. So fear is running the show. That's a really good one to watch. It's $197 a month. We also have 3-month and 6-month coaching packages. Regardless, if you put in Satori coaching, just because you guys were on this webinar today, you'll save $100 off your first month. So which literally means you can get a month worth of coaching with Elon and I for $97, which is stupid cheap. We charge our one-on-one clients right around $5,000 for 2 hours of coaching a month, okay? And trust me, they get ridiculous value. And it's more or less the same conversations. Here it's just in the group setting. People meet from all over the world. It's awesome. We're like one big family in there. We host different challenges and meditation and different areas of life. And people are just like elevating like crazy. So at minimum, come and join that community. You will absolutely love it. And again, you don't have much to lose at $97 a month for your first month, and check it out. If those of you guys who are like, damn, this is freaking awesome. I am looking to transform my life. We have a program called Ascension Program that we only sell it usually internally. If you are interested in that, it is like a revolutionize your life within 12 months and involves some personal coaching. You're also in our group coaching for a year. And there's some other really special things that we do with you that I'm not going to get into here because it's going to take too much time to talk about it. If you are interested in looking at that, email us at support@SatoriPrime.com, right? And in the subtitle or in the title of it, just write in Ascension Program. So we know that that's what you're interested in, and we'll schedule a time to talk with you and have a conversation about that. Really though, really, like I would love to have you in any of these programs. Really where I want you is at the live event. I know that we can just do a lot of really good work in a short period of time because immersion type of things work the best. I've done so much stuff in my life. Every time I immerse myself, again, ask people who know me, I do 10-day trainings. I do 10-day meditations. I always look for immersive events. This is an immersive event. You learn the most when you immerse yourself. Hands down, has the biggest impact on you. So that's it. Any questions about anything today? The events, coaching programs, anything we talked about today, anything I could support you with, help you with, anything at all? If not, then I will bid you adieu tonight. I really, really thank you for your attention. And wherever you are, yes, no, yes, but, look at ways to enhance your life by just developing yourself. And I promise you, really, when you start changing the way that you look at things, the things you look at will actually change. When I woke up that next day after that subway ride, I walked outside. It's like greens I'd never seen greener. Sky was blue. I was just literally altered the landscape in which I walked around, and it absolutely shocked me. And that's possible for every single human on the planet. And I know that because it happened to me, and I've seen it happen to thousands of people since then. So this stuff works. All right, guys, I love you. Looking forward to seeing some of you guys at the live event, other of you in coaching. And yeah, we'll talk soon. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for everything.